This is Locked On Sports Atlanta, and it's time for the Atlanta Football Party, only on Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Atlanta Football Party, your home for the best Atlanta Falcons football talk. It's local insight you can't get anywhere but right here at Locked On. I'm your host, Tenitra Batiste. Alongside me are Falcons analyst Jarvis Davis, Locked On Falcons host Aaron Freeman, and 11 Alive anchor Maria Martin. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. Terms and conditions do apply. And the Atlanta Football Party, of course, is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So we hear about the 4 offensive first-round picks all the time. But should Terry Fontenot be graded on more than just that? We'll discuss. And Kirk Cousins showed up, but doesn't mean anything. We'll download on that too. And no third-round pick this draft, maybe. But what about a bonus third and fourth round pick? We'll explain. But first, let's talk about the free guarantee coming to fruition. And I am going to start with our guy, Aaron, because clearly the people at the bottom of the screen misunderstood the assignment that they gave us to wear pink. So I'm going to start with the guy who understood the assignment. Aaron, today's the big day in Atlanta, and everyone wants to know, will the Falcons pass on a pass rusher? So let's start with the free guarantee. It's positive vibes only. Will they do it free? Will they get themselves a pass rusher?
Well, first I'll say is this is another lesson. Never cross Tenitra Batiste. She will come for you. But sure. I think, yes,
go ahead.
Yeah, the Falcons will deliver on the thing that we have been saying for the better part of 3 months, of taking an edge rusher in the first round. We know it's going to happen. It's definitely going to happen. And I will, die on that hill until we get to the Falcons pick around 9:45 Eastern time tonight. So, yes, I think we will get that pick. It's just a question of who is going to be. And that really just all depends on how the board falls. You look at the various insider mocks, and some people have Jalen Walker falling to the Falcons at 15. Some people have Mike Green as the pick. Some people have James Pierce Jr. I've seen Shamar Stewart. I've seen Michael Williams. All of these are possibilities. It all just depends on how those first 14 picks go. But I think ultimately, when the Falcons are on the clock, we will get that edge rusher that we have all been coveting for so long. And, I won't look silly on tonight's, little nugget that we do after the pick. And I have to explain why the Falcons took an offensive tackle or a wide receiver or safety or linebacker or anything like that.
And you know what, Free? I'm going with you on that. Well, we're going to have a positive show tonight. You guys can check that out. We're going to be going live for Locked On Podcast Network. You see, Maria's catching up. It's pink. It's in that pink family. So I'm going to go to her next because at least she tried to mea culpa this thing. So Maria, today is finally the day that we all have been waiting for, to the point where it's like, I actually am not too unexcited. Is that a word? But I'm not too unexcited that it's almost daggone over. But let's go ahead and start with the free guarantee. Positive vibes only from you two, Maria. Will they do it? Will they do it? Will they pick an edge?
Yeah, so I picked the color pink because this is what I'm wearing tonight. I'm in Green Bay, so I'm here for the draft, and I'm hoping that the pick is here because that's so much more fun when the pick is here for the Falcons. But more than that, I'm hoping that they actually do what we all want them to do. And I ran into a couple of Falcons fans yesterday when I was walking around Lambeau doing my live shots. And, they were asking me, Maria, what are the Falcons going to do? Are they going to pick an edge? Like, are we going to get a pass rusher? Is this going to be the year that we stop complaining and we have to look at Tack McKinley being the last player that was drafted in 2017 in the first round? That's a long time ago. There's been a defensive player drafted in the first round since then, but of course it was 2020, and it's a guy that starts at corner that we all know and love, AJ Terrell. But I think that we got to fix that narrative. I mean, it is a dire need for the Falcons, and you heard Terry Fontenot in the hour that he spoke yesterday talking about not feeling like he was going to ever reach for a need. However, there's so many needs that can be checked off of the list in the first round. So I don't think you'd be reaching for anything. I will tell you, I think this is going to be an insane draft. I think it is very hard to predict. I think it's going to be incredibly wild. You're going to see a lot of really crazy things happen between 2 and 14. And the Falcons pick right after that in 15. And remember last year, the first defensive player that we saw come off the board was at pick 15. It's not going to be the case this time. You're going to see a serious run at defensive players. It's going to cause a lot of chaos. I'm just hoping that the chaos lands a little bit more friendly with the Falcons this time and not like last year. So yeah, I also put my free guarantee stamp on this. I think the Falcons get help and they get someone that can get after the quarterback, and you need somebody who is an impact player. That's the phrase that Terry Fontenot has been using so eloquently, so often recently. Impact player for sure. You need someone that can get on the field right away. I don't want someone who's more of a project. I need somebody who puts on a Falcons uniform, who's a first-round draft pick, who's going to go out there and get after the quarterback.
I like it. So, Jarvis, are we rounding out the football party and saying that we believe in Terry, we believe in Raheem, and we believe that we're going to be having a conversation, whether it's Maria tonight in Green Bay, whether it's you guys jumping on as we talk and download on our Locked On Podcast Network specials for the draft. Do you guys believe at the end of the night, we're going to be having that conversation about the Falcons picking an edge rusher, pass rusher? Come on.
Yes, with the caveat.
It's
going to be someone that I don't.
4 for 4. We're like 4 for 3.5. Okay.
Yeah, 3.5. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like my mama told me I was different when I growing up, so I'm gonna kind of stick with that. You know what I mean?
Man.
Like, I ain't ride the short bus free. I know what you're thinking.
I didn't say it. You said it. That's all I'm saying.
I didn't ride the short bus special. I wasn't that type special, but I was special. I was a different individual growing up. So I'm gonna stick with that. So I say yes with a caveat. I really feel like it's gonna be a guy that I don't necessarily care for. I feel like it's some smoke to this James Pierce Jr. type of situation. Free and I talked about this on Locked On Falcons yesterday. I was like, man, like a lot of insiders, a lot of people who are in tune with a lot of different organizations, and they have their different sources or what have you. And that's the name that keeps popping up. But what gives me hope is that Mike Green is right there in that same conversation. So yeah, I feel like it's going to be an edge rusher tonight. But I feel like it might be somebody that I don't necessarily like. And that's okay. That's okay. I'm fine with that. I'm like Free. With all positive vibes on this draft show. As long as it's the edge rusher, baby, we can work with it. We can work with it. And we'll evaluate, figure out whether or not we like, if he can play later on.
Beggars can't be choosers at this point.
No, we can't. No, 5, 10, 20.
Whoever, whatever. And again, I said I didn't want a project guy, but at this point, whatever. You know what? Come what may. Yeah. If you play on the defensive side of the ball and you're not named, I mean, if they take a corner, we're going to have another conversation, although I do think that's very possible. Yeah. But I think that you can't really hurt my feelings today because they're going to go defense. It's a free guarantee.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's almost like that moment, like when you're in the club, and they get ready to turn the lights on. You can't be choosy. Hey, it's only a certain type of person
left in the club when they turn the lights on. Oh, no, sir, no, ma'am. Now, I was with your analogy, Jarvis, until you said can't be choosy. I mean, that made me take off my glasses and want to put my contacts in because, baby, even when the lights come on, if you don't look like you're supposed to be looking, I can damn sure walk away. Just we can walk away tonight if there's an offensive player picked at 15. No.
Your analogy was so good for a minute, and then you just hard U-turned.
Jarvis, I understand where you're coming from. This other side of the panel, or
right?
Other way.
So can I explain myself, please?
No,
you better.
Down my neck. I got pink in my tie. Like I got pink in my tie. Come on,
really?
Give me some credit here.
But
it's almost like when the lights are on and you're looking for a conversation, some comfort. Like, there's only a certain amount of people that stick around when the lights are on. You know what I'm saying? I used to work at the club, so I understand the mindset of people, who do these things. So yeah. I'm not gonna be mad if they do an edge rusher that I don't necessarily think can be an immediate impact player in that first year. I'm not gonna be mad.
But
I'm be satisfied. You know what I'm
but
saying?
that's different because you're still getting a player on the defensive side of the ball. So that's not like the unattractive girl or guy at the end of the night when the lights come on and you're
I didn't say anything about
But
looks.
you were going there. That's
I
where
said
you
a
were going.
conversation, comfort
You
and
didn't have
conversation.
to. You didn't have to.
No.
Okay.
I'm sure, T. Well, I don't want to go down this road because
Yeah,
I know
because you
where we're
took
going.
it there.
I'm gonna stop right
You
there.
was
You know what I'm saying? I don't want to go down this
I'm
road.
going down that road. But I think everybody, I think overall what we're all saying is the same thing. We're believing in the free guarantee that it's going to be a pass rusher. But if by chance it's not, as long as it's a defensive player who can bring some value, preferably this year, but even if they have a lot of upside in the years to come, that's really what we're looking for. We're just really not looking to have any conversation tonight about an offensive player, not even an O lineman, because we know that there are so many of them deeper in the draft that you can get who can still be quality. And the Falcons do have a complete O line at this point. So going that route in the first round would essentially be a stretch, even if it's not maybe the perfect O line, but it is on some level still some semblance of complete. Now, here's something that I thought was very interesting, Maria. Fewer players are attending the draft than any draft in the past 5 years. And I go to you on that one because I know you're there and you're kind of seeing the movement in and around Green Bay. But I was wondering, do you feel like that's because the draft picks are as unsure of how the top part of this draft will shake out as not just we are, but even the pundits, like Aaron mentioned earlier?
No, actually, we were talking about this at dinner last night. So this is my third straight draft that I've gotten to go to and see, and I've seen less and less players want to come here. And there's a lot of reasons for that, but I think it really changed with Will Levis in the draft when he was expected to be a first-round draft pick and the cameras were on him and he's waiting in the room with his girlfriend and all these memes are made about Will Levis. He ends up getting taken in the second round. That's obviously still a great accomplishment. That's really high. But when you're the last one waiting in the green room and all your friends have been picked up, it's like when you're small and you're the last person to get picked on a dodgeball team. Nobody wants that on display on national television. You know, they would rather be, not that that happened to me ever, Jarvis, because you're laughing.
What?
But, you know, I honestly think that has just made a lot of prospects really sit and think, do I want to be at home with my family or have a party somewhere and have all my friends there? Or do I want to go through the whole parade me around, go through the media circuit? The draft is a really long day. It's a great day. It's very exciting for the prospects that get picked up and they get to be here. Like, that experience is really cool, but it's not a free guarantee that you get drafted in the first round if you're invited to come here. And I think that actually does make a big difference when it comes to these prospects potentially coming here. You saw Michael Williams pulled out of coming here. I mean, there are players that are just rethinking things, especially when you get closer to the draft and they start hearing, hey, like, I don't know if I'm going to go in the first round. So I think it's interesting. I think it's a really cool event. It's awesome for the players that do get to experience this, but I do understand the reason why a lot of them are opting out these days.
Yeah, and I think it doesn't help that it's in Green Bay. No offense to Green Bay, but, you know, it's like the fourth best city in the state of Wisconsin or something like that. And that's not helping. And I think, you know, when it was in New York, Radio City Music Hall, that's, you know, where it was for many, many years, you know, it's more, I think, alluring to prospects to get all gussied up and wear their fancy bright colored suits and whatnot and walk around New York City and go to the draft and meet the commissioner and all that stuff. And I feel like these last couple of years, as they've moved around the country, it becomes a little less alluring to prospects. It's just like, I'd rather stay home than go to this random NFL city these last couple of years and, you know, just celebrate with my family. And I think that's on top of what Maria's talking about. I think that's also a factor in it.
And I think you're onto something, you know, Free. I'll throw shade at Green Bay. Nobody want to go to Green Bay. Who wants to go to Green Bay? Nobody.
I did. I've never been here.
I've been to Green Bay before. It's a green and yellow town. They have a green and yellow. They have a green mall. Sure. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I got a chance to meet Mike McCarthy. He was at the coin toss when I played a little arena football game up there. Hey there, young man. Hey, man, can you sign me? Like, can you give me a contract, bro? Like, what's going on? Man?
So you wanted to go to Green Bay?
Yeah. I wanted to go with any team that willing to give me a contract. I don't care where it is. You know.
Go ahead.
But seriously though, I think, you know, I think that's a big part of it. Like, because everybody want to throw on the suit. Everybody dressed up except for Maria. Everything. Want to look good.
Yeah.
Walk across the stage. New York Radio City Music Hall. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Of course. There we go.
I'm going to have a suit on all day, Jarvis.
Yes,
literally
it's
all
okay.
day.
I'm giving you. I ain't throwing no shade at you. You know what I'm saying? It's all
you
love.
shouldn't. I'll be working all day. I don't need a suit on right now.
Yes, you're a very hardworking woman. I give you that. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, I think this is a matter of it's the city where it is not in a traditional town, and nobody wants to go to Green Bay. I mean, that's it. Nobody want to go there. It's okay. I mean, Jalen Milroe, he accepted the invite. You know what I'm saying? But will he probably be sitting in the green room too? I would assume. So it's I'm not too concerned because, like I said, put it in the big city, put it in Atlanta, see how many people show up.
Where's it going to go in Atlanta, though? There's nowhere to put it. Piedmont Park?
No, that's pretty cool. You know what? I actually think you could do it in, oh my goodness, not Piedmont. Centennial wouldn't be a bad option if you want open door. I think it would be kind of cool here.
Could be cool.
Yeah, this city puts on.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
If Centennial can hold the Outkast concert, they can hold the draft.
That's true. That is very true.
Yeah, I kind of like that thought. Maybe we need to ask them or get leadership to kind of throw their hat in the ring because that could be a thing. But you know what else has been a thing for the Falcons? Drafting offensive players in the first round. We hear about the 4 offensive first round picks ad nauseum. But should Terry Fontenot be graded on more than that? We'll talk about that under further review. This episode of the Atlanta Football Party is brought to you by Monarch Money and by Game Time. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. When I started using Monarch, I realized just how much I was spending on food delivery. Now I budget smarter and save more. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals and manage money with your partner. And that will be smoother than ever with monarchmoney.com. This episode of our Atlanta Football Party is also brought to you by Game Time. There's nothing like the atmosphere of an NBA playoff game. Every bucket, every defensive stop, every moment feels huge. It's electric in the arena, and with Game Time, you can be part of it without the stress of last-minute ticket hunting. And if anybody knows about stress when it comes to last-minute ticket hunting, I can raise my hand for that one. Game Time makes it easy and fast to get playoff tickets, even when demand is sky high. Prices on the app actually go down as tip-off gets closer, and their last-minute deals can save you up to 60%. The all-in pricing also means no surprise fees at checkout. What you see is what you pay. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Now, terms do apply, but again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. So Maria, Terry Fontenot was asked about his thoughts on the job he's done in the draft since he's been GM for the Falcons. Of course, he had a press conference just yesterday. He pointed out that there have been some nice finds in the latter part of the draft, Zalman, Tyler Algier, but he also said he wanted to focus on what he wants to improve. But oftentimes I do think we look at sort of that top line of his draft picks and make an assessment on him. How do you assess Terry so far on his job as GM for the Falcons?
I think at the end of the day, you are measured on wins and losses, no matter what your role is on an NFL team. And at the end of the day, this team is still in the midst of a streak of losing seasons that now extends to 7. And regardless of how you break down each year, each of the 4 previous drafts that Terry Fontenot has had, which in my notebook, and I wish I could show you guys, it's over there. In my notebook, I have a breakdown of every single thing that he's done when it comes to a trade. I think, I tweeted out earlier, anytime he has traded up or down. He's only traded up once, which was in 2021, traded down the rest of the times. He's never actually acquired draft capital. It's always been for the same amount of picks, just moving up or down in the draft. And so how do you measure that? Is your team a lot better? I don't think so. I mean, I genuinely don't think you've gotten a lot better if you still can't sniff the playoffs. And that is ultimately the goal at the end of the day. Yes, there have been nice finds in the later parts of the draft. He's not wrong about that. But there's also been misses. And again, there's going to be misses no matter what, no matter what GM, no matter what, there's misses in the draft. How many do you have? Do they make it to the playoffs? All of those things I think are important to weigh. And for Terry, we talked about it last week. This is an all-important draft for Terry. I said it on 11 Alive yesterday. This is incredibly important to get right, not because just the fact that they haven't made the playoffs. It's because they only have 5 picks right now. You have to be so sure about all 5, because there are teams sitting in the draft, as we talk about the next couple of days, that have double-digit picks. It is very different than when you're only picking 5 and 2 of them happen to be in the 7th round. So for me, Terry Fontenot hasn't done enough yet. You're hoping that this is the draft that turned things around. And I think one thing that a lot of fans have been sold on for a long time that I think is completely inaccurate is that this team is one piece away. This team has never really been one piece away. And so I think that also puts false expectations on Terry as well. I mean, you saw that with the quarterback. They paid a boatload of money to get a veteran quarterback that they thought would fix all their problems, and the defense still has a lot of issues. So I think that, that's a loaded answer to what you asked, but I do think that the pressure is on for Terry. And if he doesn't get it right this time around, we're really going to be looking at somebody on the hot seat at the end of this next season.
Oh, Maria, you said something that I want to go back to a little bit later. So you guys put a pin in that, the thought on the fact that they're always seeming to feel like or believe like or approach the draft or even free agency as though they're one player away. So let's come back to that a little bit later, because I think that's a great point that you make. But Aaron, when we're talking about the draft piece and some of the things that Maria mentioned earlier, we'll talk about that as well. When you kind of look at Terry in the collective, I mean, what are your thoughts on him as far as the work that he's done as this GM for the Falcons?
Yeah, I think Terry is fine. I think Maria kind of nailed it, where it's like the team isn't better than what they were. And so I was thinking about this the other day. Like if when Terry had arrived here in 2021, if the Falcons were coming off a 10-win season, I think they probably would have been able to maintain that team as a 10-win team. We've seen them as a 7-win team. They've maintained that pretty much for the last couple of years as a 7-win team. If he had inherited a 4-win team, they probably would still be a 4-win team, now 3-4 years later. And so I don't know if Terry has done a good enough job to raise the overall talent level of the team. It's just more like the team has just been kind of treading water because of what you're talking about, where there have been some early round hits, there have been some early round misses, there have been some late round hits, there have been some late round misses, but overall there is no sort of real compelling argument saying, oh man, this team is light years better. They've gotten, better at certain spots, they've gotten worse at other spots. It's just a whole lot of average, I think, with Terry Fontenot's record so far here in Atlanta. And I think that's not the worst thing in the world, but given, the expectations, given the fact that the Falcons under Dan Quinn were, at the height of the league, for that one season, and then it kind of fell apart. And the expectations when Terry got the job was he was going to bring that back. He has not lived up to those expectations. And I think that leads to a lot of the criticism, a lot of negativity surrounding this regime so far. And as Maria said, I do think if they don't nail this draft, if we're not sitting here, on Sunday being like, man, Terry really killed it. This is at least, how draft grades are. Everybody sits there and gives out their grades, and then they all look terrible like 3 years down the road. But if we're not sitting there, at least marveling at the A- or A+ grade that Terry did, given the limited draft capital on Sunday, it's not going to make things get any better over the course of the next 6 months until they get on the field. And then ultimately that will be the test. As Maria said, wins and losses are really going to determine whether or not people look at this regime and Terry Fontenot's draft record in a positive way.
Yeah, that's true, Jarvis, because we really always hear about these fabulous draft grades, and last year's kind of range from C to D-, mostly because I think a lot of people did head scratching about Michael Penix Jr., if we're being honest here. And then It's still an incomplete grade, even at this point for the class of 2024. But when you think about not just 2024, but his 4 previous drafts, I mean, what do you think about Terry's book, if you will, his portfolio as a draft or as a drafter, a scout, or a recruiter overall during his time with the Falcons?
Incomplete.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing. A lot of times what I found that to be really consistent with under Terry Fontenot's regime is the fact that, like Maria said, okay, you bringing in Marcus Mariota to be your quarterback. Okay. All right, Marcus Mariota stinks. You bring in Desmond Ridder to be your quarterback. Desmond Ridder stinks. No one thought that quarterback class was capable of elevating, your team to the level that you want to be, and that's in the postseason. No one thought that. No one thought that when they brought Desmond Ridder in there. Well, there were some people who were sold on him, but me, speaking for myself, I did not think that Desmond Ridder was that type of talent. And then you go to the whole, how Matt Ryan left, how that was handled. You pursued Deshaun Watson, and you didn't pursue Deshaun Watson. Then you traded away Matt, and Matt was able to get some production out of the guy that you took. That I don't know if he's probably more than likely not going to be on this team next year. So it's just in that draft, we're talking about a draft, and I got on Thomas Dimitroff about this too. You're talking about a draft where no one resigns, no one gets us a big second contract. Like that's not good.
Yeah, that's good. That's
not good.
How telling that is.
Right. It's super telling. So, although it's good to have guys like Tyler Algier, it's good to have guys like Drew Dahlman, who's second highest paid center in the league, for another team. But we got to look at how many of your guys are resigning with you, or are you giving 2 to 3 year contracts after that first contract runs out? And the answer to that is in that first draft, which is probably you can fairly assess that draft right now because we're 4 years removed from it. So yeah, we can say that draft is not good. It's not a good draft, and you don't want to be accumulating those more and more as you continue to go on. So yeah, I think that it's incomplete. It's mid, as a young kid say, and you hope for his sake and for his job security that Michael Penix is enough of a talent to elevate this team to where they want to be, and that's in the playoffs.
Yeah. And Maria, of course, there's more commentary. Even at this juncture, do we ever have a show on Mondays or Thursdays where somehow Kirk Cousins doesn't still appear somewhere in the pantheon of our conversation? And so Terry's press conference, in that presser, he said ESPN's Adam Schefter's report of the Falcons wanting teams to pay $20 million of Kirk Cousins' salary was inaccurate. In fact, Fontenot stated that, quote, they haven't put a specific number on it, meaning, of course, Kirk's salary. So somebody somewhere is lying. We detect the lies, or we detect a stretching of the truth. But what does Terry refuting the report even mean in the grand scheme of things, if anything?
I don't think it means a lot. I mean, what I do think it means, though, is if you're saying there's not a specific asking price on Kirk, you could have given people a range. That's not a specific number. So it's not really a lie. It's just not telling the whole truth. I do believe that Kirk is going to get traded. I do. And I think that there have been conversations, because you can't walk into draft weekend without there being a conversation. We all know that. It doesn't just happen he's not going to get traded tonight. I would be floored if that happened. There's just no way, in my opinion. I almost want to put a free guarantee on that, but the Falcons did some weird things last year, especially when it came to Kirk. So I'm a little bit jaded and a little bit scarred. But, you talk about second round, third round, whatever, it's possible that he gets dealt out and you're not having that conversation the night of. These conversations have been happening. They're putting temperature checks on every single team. Hey, what would it take? What do you want for this guy? What do we want for this guy? And there's a need for a veteran quarterback out there, and one that can still play football. And I do think that, the Falcons are in a very good position because they need things for Kirk, and they're going to use that to their advantage. And so, yeah, I mean, I think he's going to get dealt away. So we're going to have to stop talking about him on Mondays and Thursdays. We'll probably have one more week of talking about him, I think.
We should hope.
Yes. But I do think, him not saying a specific number doesn't mean those conversations have not been had and have not been had for weeks at this point. So yeah, I don't think it necessarily means anything in the grand scheme of things, because I still believe that those conversations have already happened. I don't think that it would give you any sort of semblance one way or another, a specific asking price. Him confirming that, I don't think confirms one way or another if he moves or not. You guys know how Terry works. He says a lot of words without saying anything, or he says just enough to where it's not actually what it is. Do you know what I mean? And that's a good move by a general manager who's getting ready to have a very important draft. But still, at the end of the day, I think Kirk could stealth away, and him just denying the specific asking price doesn't really tell us a whole lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is a matter of Terry saying to the entire world, we're not playing hard ball. We're willing to negotiate. We're willing to have a conversation.
Arrange.
Right. Arrange. We have a range of what we would like a team to pay. Like that was also a part of that report was the whole sliding scale piece. The more you're willing to pay, hey, the less the draft capital. The less that you're willing to pay, the more the draft capital, right? Like, hey, if you're willing to pay 20, we'll take that 6th round pick, you know. But if you want to pay 10, man, we might need a 4th. You never know. Yeah. So I think that all that says, him refuting that report, all that says is that, hey, we're willing to negotiate.
Yeah, I think that's it. I wish I had Maria's confidence that Kirk is going to get dealt. I think the game of musical chairs at the veteran quarterback position, the music's about to stop, right? I think it's, Cleveland's got their guy. We'll see what happens with the Saints and Derek Carr. We'll see what happens with the Steelers and Aaron Rodgers or whatever. But it does, for me, feel like those opportunities where Kirk can go to a team that he wants to go to, where he's going to be the unquestioned starter and doesn't have to look over his shoulder at some, up and coming rookie quarterback. I don't know if there's going to be too many more of those opportunities for him. So I'm not as optimistic. I'm not going to put a free guarantee on Kirk getting dealt at this point in time. But I didn't
either.
Yeah.
Okay. But
I also feel like we're all jaded as children. I made the dodgeball reference and you just talked about musical chairs. Like, do we need to talk about something larger at play here? Anyway.
I just think I do think the Falcons are going to be flexible, and I agree with Jarvis that I do think Terry's comments indicate that there is no hard line in the sand, but I just think that game of musical chairs is about to be over.
Yeah, one can hope. But there were musical chairs played. Willie, won't he sit down, show up, come through? He actually did. So we'll talk about whether or not that means anything as well when we come back. This episode of our Atlanta Football Party is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. As a small business owner, your work doesn't end when the clock hits 5. Your business is always on your mind, which means when it's time to hire, you need a partner that works just as hard as you do. That's where LinkedIn Jobs comes in. When you clock out, LinkedIn clocks in. LinkedIn makes it easy to post your job for free, share it with your network, and get qualified candidates all in one place. So here's how it works. You post your job with their new feature that can help you write job descriptions and then quickly get your job in front of the right people with deep candidate insights. And here's a pro tip. Add the hashtag hiring frame to your profile picture to double your reach to qualified candidates. No wonder 72% of small businesses say LinkedIn helps them find high quality hires. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. So guys, Kirk Cousins showed up for voluntary workouts in Flowery Branch this week. Some were surprised, some were not. But for you, Aaron, are you surprised Kirk showed up because maybe you expected him to be a no-show, or is this what you expected of him, or does it even really matter?
I did not expect Kirk to show up for this opening phase of voluntary workouts. I figured, okay, maybe after the draft, once things start to settle, he'll probably show up or something like that. But this week, I did not expect us to see or hear from Kirk Cousins. So I was mildly surprised, but it's not like shattering the world or anything like that Kirk Cousins is going to be the quote unquote good guy and show up and get these second string players on offense ready to go for the Falcons in training camp all throughout OTA. So it's not a total shocker, but I certainly was not expecting that, on Tuesday that we would be talking about Kirk Cousins actually showing up to that first phase of OTAs.
Jarvis, were you surprised? Did you expect Kirk to show up, not show up, or does it even matter in the general scheme of things?
I'm not surprised at all. Kirk probably walked up there, had a nice little bounce to his step. Hey, guys, ain't nothing going on, I ain't call y'all out. I ain't snitch on y'all, about injuries and stuff. I played well at the end of the season, didn't I? I got benched. What do you mean I got benched? I can't be the starter this year. Why not, coach? You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, as high-pitched my voice is right now, I don't know why it's that high. I
That's
think
your
that
dramatic voice.
Talks like that.
Kirk lacks a little self-awareness, a little, he's not quite sure how people, view him right now in this city.
Understandably so.
He might go to the west side and go to Bankhead Seafood and go get some food, like ain't nothing happened. Like somebody might just swing on him, that's possible. But people don't like Kirk
there,
right
I would think so,
yeah. People don't like Kirk, even though they built it up and it looks really nice over there right now. It looks totally different than what the old Bankhead Seafood used to look like. But I think there are a certain set of people that just don't like Kirk right now. But so, I'm not surprised at all. Because Kirk, I promise you, he probably went and dapped Mike. Man, MP, what's up, baby? You know what I'm saying? Like, go ahead and get my coffee for me. And Mike gonna be like, hold up, bro.
Get my coffee. No more. You should get your coffee.
Right? Like, you should get my coffee, Kirko, So, in all seriousness, though, I think this is quintessential Kirk Cousins.
No shock there. So, Maria, there was also a report that came out from The Athletic. We've heard it before, but when you hear it from Diana Rossini of The Athletic and so close to the draft and some of the particulars in it, it's like, okay, maybe that particular option for trading to the Steelers or Broncos or Vikings this weekend actually starting to regain steam. So whether or not you feel a trade is likely to happen, let me just ask this part. Which team for you makes the most sense for Kirk Cousins to land on?
Okay, first of all, I love the musical chair analogy by Aaron. I think it's very smart because you can make an argument for a lot of these teams, all three of them, not working out for Kirk. The reason why I feel that Kirk is going to be dealt is because I think having him on the roster is going to give them a lot more problems than it will positives. Now, that has nothing to do with Kirk as an individual. We all know I have sung his praises. I'm very lucky to have covered him. I will say that. He is one of the best professionals I've ever been around. However, it's not a fit for this team anymore for so many different reasons. Let's say, for example, Mike goes out there. He starts to not play so well. Let's say, God forbid, Mike goes out there. He gets hurt. You have Kirk as your backup quarterback looming in the background. That is a whole nother mess that the Falcons, I promise you, don't want to deal with. And Kirk and Mike, probably nobody wants to deal with anything like that. Now, the caveat here is the Falcons have to find a trade partner that makes sense, right? And that's where the tricky part comes in. I think that the whole, we're comfortable as Kirk being our backup, blah, 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 that has to be put out there just in case all of this falls through. That is literally what I think they're doing. I think it is a save our butt. If this doesn't work out and we can't find a legitimate trade partner for Kirk, we've now said all along, we were comfy with him. We're comfortable with him being here. So they have that insurance in the bag. Now, to me, the Vikings don't make sense. Everybody understands why. They obviously have a preference for JJ. And I think Diana Rossini even said the Vikings are probably the least likely of everybody. And just the way that everything went down, I can't imagine that Kirk would be like, oh yeah, let me go back to Minnesota. That doesn't make sense, even though he had obviously a wonderful time in Minnesota. The Steelers makes a ton of sense for me and for Kirk to go there. Obviously, they're waiting on Aaron Rodgers, and you might be waiting until he comes out of a dark hole. I got no idea. He's got a long time to give you an answer when it comes to Aaron Rodgers. And that's obviously a big headache. As we know, Pittsburgh, and you know very well, Tenitra, is prone to take on a lot of headaches when it comes to their roster. But they have another situation where it's going to be Kirk, and then he's mentoring somebody else. He's made it abundantly clear, and his agent, Mike McCarthy, have made it abundantly clear. He doesn't want to go to another situation like he's in now and like what happens to him in Minnesota. They don't want a risk of a rookie quarterback being drafted or somebody sitting behind him waiting to take the job. At this point in his career, maybe that's a big ask. I don't know. Maybe it's being a diva. I have no idea, but he's been very, very clear. I don't want to be in this situation anymore. We've seen how it's played out for him in Atlanta. Mm-hmm. So I don't really know that any of them make a ton of sense just because of the other rumors that we've heard. But to me, Pittsburgh, if Aaron Rodgers is not involved, that's where he should go. And it would be hilarious because we all know a former Falcons coach works there.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is the beautiful thing about being part of the Locked On Podcast Network, because you have, you know, the local experts on their teams. And I've gone and listened to recent episodes of Locked On Browns, Locked On Steelers, Locked On Vikings, and none of them think Kirk is going to be in their cities, right? I think you listen to Chris Carter of Locked On Steelers, the expectation is Aaron Rodgers is going to be their sort of bridge quarterback. They signed Mason Rudolph this offseason. Mason Rudolph, no one sits here and thinks, oh man, Mason Rudolph is the guy, but he's been productive and successful in Pittsburgh. And, you know, Pittsburgh's success is not hinged on having an elite quarterback. It's running the football and playing good defense. And we saw that last year. And Mason Rudolph, I think, is good enough to get them. So I don't think Pittsburgh's going to be desperate. I know T's sitting there. She's chomping at the bit.
The eyebrow wiggle.
But I don't think the Steelers are in any rush. You know, and I think this is ultimately the issue with the Kirk. To use Jarvis's words, we're at the club. It's not just two people. It's three people. It's a throuple, right? They have to all link up together right before the last call, because it's Kirk has to sign off on the trade. A team has to want Kirk. And, of course, the Falcons want to make this compensation work. So, for me, it's one of those things where, you know, if you believe in polyamory or polygamy or whatever, this thing can work. But if you're all about monogamy and all that stuff, then I don't know if it's going to work at this point in time. And that's why I sit here skeptical that a trade will actually develop.
You said that with a polo buttoned to the top button. That is wild.
Polyamory.
That was diabolically good, Aaron. Like, Jarvis, good luck coming off that one.
I don't even know where to go with that one. Because I'm still stuck on the whole polyamorous stuff. We're gonna have to talk about that after the show. Free, you know what I'm saying? You need a show to lean on, man. I got you. That could be very stressful. You know, not that I've experienced that.
I was gonna say he's been
I'm just saying. I'm a people person. So I know dealing with one person is stressful. So having multiple, that can be stressful. I would assume. You know, but anyway, Kirk is not going to be dealing with multiple teams. I feel like this is a situation where, when you think about this Kirk and the three teams that were mentioned, I don't see the Vikings. Yeah, if you want to be the backup, okay, I guess. But you know, he's long said that he doesn't want to be. He wants to be a starter. Like, he wants to be a starting quarterback. And then when you have the Steelers, I guess they're gonna wait on Aaron Rodgers, Mike Tomlin. But I don't know about that one. I guess. Yeah. Okay.
That's where one Shedeur Sanders falls. That could be dictating a lot of things too.
Yeah, for sure.
Shedeur is going to be. Aaron and I have talked about this. Shedeur is going to be the catalyst for this draft. I feel like wherever he falls or how far he falls, it's going to shake some things up. And I'm going to have my popcorn ready. I want to see how this thing is going to shake out. But you know, even in that, you talking about the Steelers, and then the Vikings, and then the Browns. They got Kenny Pickett. Yeah. They have Joe. They signed Joe Flacco, and they got Deshaun Watson up here collecting the bag and looking at his retirement account. You know what I'm saying? So it's just too much going on there. Because that was what we all thought would be the perfect fit. And then they signed Joe for $4 million. And even though that's not a lot of money, but is that for a second string or a third string? We don't know. And so it's just too much stuff that we have to wade through, too much trash we have to get through in order to get Kirk off this team. So it's going to be interesting, but I just don't see those teams being viable candidates unless some stuff happens.
The pre-draft reports about Shedeur are not good. And so I really believe that I think I agree with you. Like, he's going to be the catalyst to a lot of things that happen in the draft. And I do believe he's going to fall and like free fall. Just the pre-draft things that NFL assistants are saying about him, it is very negative. That can drastically impact your draft stock on a draft night. And one thing I know for sure, a free guarantee about these NFL teams, they may take on some guys that have some dirt and some baggage, but they're not going to take on a guy that has each bullet point that these NFL assistants have listed. And the fact that he says, according to this report, Shedeur is just simply not that good. If you really don't believe a player is not that good, you're not going to take on everything else that comes with it.
Yeah, and it's such a sad commentary because I tell you, having covered that kid and watching him darn near bring his team back as a freshman in the Celebration Bowl, he literally willed them back almost on his own in the second half and then almost did it again the second time before he went on to Colorado. It's a sort of sad commentary, but unfortunately for him, it's probably, and nobody would admit this, but it's less Shedeur Sanders, it's more Deion Sanders, which is the sad commentary because, I mean, the Mannings did this a gazillion years ago where they said we refuse to let average Eli Manning go a certain place, and they dictated where he went, and kind of worked out well. So who knows what it'll be for Shedeur Sanders. But I do think that, we all agree that linchpin, good, bad, or indifferent, is going to be the linchpin and the domino where all the other dominoes probably will land as a result. Now, no third round pick this draft for the Falcons, maybe, but what about a bonus third and fourth round pick? We'll explain next. So we have spoken over and over and over again about Terry Fontenot. Talked about it earlier in his drafting, right? 4 previous drafts, implemented a few trades, never gained draft capital in the process, only gained positioning to move up to get players. And as Maria mentioned before, those moves were all made in the second round, by the way. So for you, Jarvis, do you think that maybe we'll see a savvy move from Terry that gets us both, that gets Falcons positioning, that gets him draft capital, or as she referred to earlier, Maria said they'll still operate like, hey, they're one player away, the way it feels like they've operated in the past?
It's possible. I mean, anything is possible in the draft, right? You know, we were actually optimistic to start this show off about them drafting the edge rusher. So, if we can be all of us, as long as all of us have been covering this team, it's probably 30 years of coverage of this Falcons team combined on this show right now, 40 maybe, you know? So, if we can be optimistic about this team drafting the right position, not the right player, drafting the right position, it could happen. But, however, there's always a caveat to these things. Somebody got to be willing to dance with you. If they're not willing to dance, or you realize they're ugly when the lights come on, you know, you're going to fall back.
Had to go there.
You finally said it.
I mean, T, I'm using your analogy. You know what I'm saying?
You don't have to. You don't have to qualify it with me. I'm real good with what I said.
So I really feel. Oh gosh, help me, Lord. I really feel like you know there is a scenario where the Falcons could make this thing happen. Like I said, and Shedeur could be a part of that, right? If he continues to fall, and there's a team that's trying to trade back into the first round, the Browns or the Giants, they say, "Hey man, we really like this cat. We just didn't want to take him in the top 3 pick." So it could happen. It could be possible, and you know, God bless him. If Terry's able to pull it off, man, I would love that. That would be such a savvy move because there are so many teams that there's not that many elite level players, you know, at the top of the draft. So there's a lot of value once you start to go back into the 15s, 20s, 30s, and 40s and 50s. Yeah, there's a lot of value there. So the fact that teams are going to be willing to trade up are not likely. But once these quarterback thirsty teams, those are the ones you're going to have to depend on if you're looking to trade back and pick up some more draft capital.
Yeah. And the challenge there is whether or not they're going to be thirsty enough, because the ones behind you kind of don't need that. They are in fairly decent position as far as like the Chargers or Packers and the teams direct, as you get to, especially as you get to the ones behind the Steelers. Once you get to like that 2021, everybody is pretty much good on quarterback. So yeah, I think it's one of those where it depends on whether or not anyone gets a little antsy the way, say, the Raiders got antsy and a couple other teams, and everything started to shake up like right towards that late the late part of the first third of the first round last year. Just a caveat, Maria, before I go to you. Jarvis, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. So I don't want anyone to think they're ugly. They're just maybe attractive for different people for different reasons. So just wanted to clarify.
That's true.
For all 227 of our viewers right now.
There's no such thing as ugly.
There isn't.
Agree with
it's
you.
Beauty is in the eye of the beholder.
Yeah.
So you could be unattractively attractive to somebody else.
I might not be someone's cup of tea. I know that's hard to believe. I might not be someone's cup of tea.
Okay.
That's possible.
But you are somebody's cup of tea.
I am. And I've been so for 12, going on 13 years now.
Exactly.
So, and I'm proud of that.
Okay, that's great.
So just wanted to clarify that.
I didn't know we were going to get here, but hey, it is what it is.
Yeah. Well, hey, I just needed the people to know. I didn't want them to think I was around here calling people ugly, when in reality, everyone is attractive to someone, and you could be unattractively unattractive and attractive to someone. So, Maria, do you think we'll see?
How do I follow that up?
Right, exactly.
We'll see a savvy move. Will Terry make a beautiful and attractive move for us and actually get not just positioning and draft capital, or do you think there's a sneaky way they'll find a way to act like they're only a player away?
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I thought was really interesting that Terry said yesterday, talking about he has a board of all of the other general managers based on what they've done in previous drafts. So their ability to move up and down the draft boards, how aggressive they are. So he's mapped it out. That means he's planning, just in case a trade were to arise, which general managers are more likely to deal with me and why and when and so forth. And he was asked, where would you be on this board? In your whole board, how would you assess where you are? He said, I'm 75% trade up. I'm more aggressive, which again, let me remind everybody, never had a trade in the first round since he's been with the Falcons.
Exactly.
And he's always had trades in the second round, none of which gained him more draft capital. So I don't know if I totally agree with the fact that he's...
I'm sorry.
You okay? You want to say that again?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Okay. I don't. Right. So maybe that was a little nugget that he would trade up for Abdul Carter. This would be a complete 180 based on the 4 previous drafts that he has already had. Perhaps he does that. I don't know. Maybe people are hoping they grasp on that one thing. Yeah. And they grasp on the one thing he said and hope that that's true. And look, maybe I do too, but I do kind of disagree with him being more aggressive just because he hasn't proved it. He's telling us he is, so maybe he is. I don't know. We've never seen that in his 4 previous drafts. So I think the Falcons...
So what you're saying is,
yeah,
he's going to pull a Thomas Dimitroff. He's going to pull a Julio Jones trade. That's what you're saying?
No, I never said that.
Oh, okay.
What I do think is that the Falcons are likely to trade. I just don't think it's going to be where people want it to be. We've seen the track record for Terry, and then he does feel like he can move around for certain things. And again, I just think your draft positioning in this class doesn't bode well for you going in. You can look at that a bunch of different ways. They're trying to look at it as a positive way, but having only 5 picks and the way that you are listed right now, where you are in the draft, is just not that exciting for a lot of different reasons.
Yeah.
And if you can find a way to manipulate that and move it around, and I know he said he's going to be aggressive in undrafted free agency, and they're going to be very strategic in the way that they navigate that. But I still think this is such an important draft that they have to get creative and move around. And hopefully for the first time in his tenure as a general manager, he creates some kind of a magic trick and they get draft capital somewhere, unless it's moving up to take an Abdul Carter. Fine. Yeah. That would be the only caveat that I have to that. But I do believe they are going to have to get a little creative. And I don't know that they're going to spin it this way or this year as they're 1 player away. I think it's impossible to look at that at this point. I think that they've also verbalized now all offseason were multiple pieces of the defense away. In conversations that I've had with defensive coaches off camera and away from everybody else, they've consistently said, we have to improve the defense in so many levels. So they're all on the same page. Tonight and this weekend, that's the time to do it.
Yeah, we shall see. So, Aaron, when you think about the fact that the Falcons don't have that third round pick and let's say they can't figure out a way to get back into the third round, are you comfortable with Bralen Trice being your pseudo third round? Huh? I know, right? Comfortable is the key word with them.
Trigger word. It's a trigger word.
Bralen Trice being your pseudo third round pick rather this year. Would you consider Brandon Dorlus an extra fourth round pick? And the reason I was thinking of that in that light is because, well, heck, you really didn't see him play. So does it make you feel any better to say, well, at least you kind of sort of can piece those two together and say you kind of have bonus third round, bonus fourth round picks?
I mean, it feels like a stretch to put it that way, T.
I'm trying to help him out. I'm trying to help Terry out, man.
Like, it's one of those things where you basically, with Bralen Trice, because he missed the season with an ACL injury, this is basically his rookie year, right?
Exactly.
Because Brandon Dorlus played, I don't even, like 5 snaps, 12 snaps.
Very little.
One tackle.
Very little.
If it got into double digits, I'd be surprised, right? Basically, this is going to be his rookie year. So when you look at it from that perspective, right, where we have a third round pick and a fourth round pick that we really don't know anything about, like we would have if we were drafting those guys on Friday and Saturday, you can look at it from that perspective of we have 2 more rookies in this draft class, in addition to whoever the Falcons wind up drafting. But it's not like it's a bonus pick is where I would probably draw the line on. It's like you're still missing a third round pick. I do feel like when it comes to this draft, and we're talking about Terry Fontenot and his draft record, and I do feel like it seems like, and again, this is not a universal opinion, but it does feel like a lot of Falcon fans, we're all in agreement that they should take a pass rusher in the first round. But it does seem like Mike Green of Marshall is probably the most popular player. And so if Terry can find a way to manipulate the board, trade back, potentially pick up a third round pick, still be able to land a player like Mike Green, I think the conversations that we're going to be having about Terry Fontenot on the next football party on Monday with Tori McElhaney are going to be very different than the conversations we're having right now. And so there is that opportunity for him to, as we talk about, change the narrative when it comes to his draft record, particularly this weekend, as we've talked about so many times over the last couple of months, is this kind of being this make-break draft for Terry Fontenot. It's about his legacy and all that sort of stuff. So I do feel like, while I wouldn't count Bralen Trice or Brandon Dorlus as bonus picks, they are a part of the conversation when it comes to we don't know about them like we would be talking about any of these rookies in this draft class. But I do think there is an opportunity for Terry to pick up those bonus picks with manipulating that first round or potentially second round in order to get the players that people want and add more draft capital that they can then use on whatever they wind up doing.
Maybe for the first time today, I'm in 100% agreement with Free in this. I think it's unfortunate that we haven't gotten a big sample size for either one of them. So no, I would not call them bonus picks because you still kind of don't know what you're getting. I feel slightly more confident about Bralen than I do Brandon. And we've seen a very teeny, tiny little sample size of Brandon. But I do think that what Bralen brings to the table and what the Falcons did see on him is going to show through this year at some point. That being said, I still don't think it's a bonus pick. And I do believe that it sounds wonderful what Aaron is saying. If Terry can find a way to get more draft capital and still get an impact player, this key phrase that we're talking about and have for the last 48 hours, that is going to change everything that we've said today and what we will say next week. Because now, let me throw a caveat in there too. That changes it right then, but then what do you do with that additional pick? Like, is it 2 players that you feel really good about, or is it like we got an okay guy and we're like, in the first round defense, but like, and then in the third, like that would change it. But if you can immediately make your team better by accumulating draft capital, like of course that's great. That's what everybody dreams of, and hopefully it does fall into the hands of Terry in that way, because I think that would be wonderful.
Yeah, that would be wonderful, Maria.
Are those your closing remarks, Jarvis?
So no, but I think the whole Brandon Dorlus piece, I'm a little wary of him. I don't know what he is. I didn't know what he was by watching tape on him last coming out. I was like, okay, is he a tweener? What is he? Is he a D tackle or is he an edge player? What I don't know what he is. I at least know what Bralen Trice is. And I've seen traits from him that I like, and I feel like it can transfer to the next level. So, I was very disappointed, not only because I thought he was starting to get some of those first team reps during practices and stuff like that in training camp, and I feel like he was doing a solid job of getting used to the grind, so to speak. And I just feel like I have a little bit more. I feel like that could be more of a bonus pick than Brandon Dorlus, because like Dorlus, I don't know what he can be. Or I don't know what his floor is. I don't know what his ceiling is. I don't know. I just don't know. I do know, kind of got a good idea where Trice's floor could be, right? So just him getting back healthy and getting out there and being able to play, be a 3-down player, which I think he can be. I feel like that will be more of a bonus pick than Brandon Dorlus.
It'll be interesting. Well, we are so close, but it feels like yet so far away from the draft and from that Falcons pick. But we appreciate you guys for being on this journey. It'll be very, very interesting to see where we are. About 10 hours from now, maybe even less than that. So thanks to our everydayers for making the Atlanta Football Party your first listen of the day as you patiently await the NFL Draft 2025. Be sure to stop by Locked on Falcons with your host, Aaron Freeman, as your second listen, and check out Maria Martin, host of Sports Extra on Sundays on 11 Alive. And of course, check out our guy, Jarvis, who is a frequent contributor for Locked on Falcons and Sports Extra. We will see you next time.